Hi, welcome back to Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio. The network is AFR Talk, the American Family Radio Talk Network. Honored to welcome to our decision maker line again from our remote studio at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Nashville, Todd Starnes. Todd has been a frequent guest on this program. You are familiar with him as an intrepid investigative reporter for Fox News. Todd, welcome back. You laugh when I call you intrepid, but you are.
Brian, look,
you're my hero.
Well, and you're mine too. Really appreciate your work for covering the culture. And I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed that you are not here at Opryland at the NRB. And I'm especially, look, I ran into a couple of folks, especially disappointed were some TSA agents who were looking forward to having a conversation with you at Nashville International. I don't know what that was all about. I didn't want to go into details.
Well, speaking of that, one of the things I wanted to chat with you about, you've done some reporting on this, and we've covered this extensively on this program, is this threat from the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, and this plan that they had cooked up to send investigators, or researchers, I think they wanted to call them, into newsrooms, TV stations, and radio stations looking for perceived station bias, and it was all cloaked under this critical information needs deal. And we found out on Friday that they backed off, but I think it sounded to me like, Todd, and I'd like your take on this, it sounds like to me that the FCC has not retreated. They're simply reloading. They're going to kind of retool that thing and then send these people right out, apparently, to do the same thing with maybe some modified questions. What do you think?
You see, Brian, this is why you are one of the most intelligent talk show hosts in the country, because you parsed their words, and you really have to do that when you're dealing with information coming from the Obama administration. That was a great concern of mine, that the FCC suspended. They did not end this program. They suspended it. So that means we're going to be, quite frankly, a bit more diligent in the coming days because I suspect the FCC may come back and revisit this policy. Very disturbing, though, Brian, that you would have a government agency coming into newsrooms and demanding to know how you and I gather our news and information. And as I mentioned in my commentary last week, it's going to be a cold day in the butterbean patch before they step 1 foot inside my office. And I suspect that's the case with many God-fearing, patriotic American journalists.
Well, now, I said the same thing. They're going to have to pry this microphone out of my cold, dead hands.
Just think about this for a moment, Brian. Under this administration, under the Obama administration, we have seen attacks on the Second Amendment, our right to bear arms. We have seen this administration attack religious liberty, specifically the Christian faith. And now they're coming after the Fourth Estate. Every single journalist in the country should be up in arms over this, that we have once again have a president, a commander-in-chief who taught constitutional law, Brian. And yet he's doing whatever he can in his power to stomp on the Constitution.
Well, and you think about the First Amendment, Todd, which is really what's at stake here. And the First Amendment specifically ties the hands of the federal government. It's specifically directed at Congress. FCC is a creature of the federal government. It says the federal government, Congress, shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. I can't imagine anything that's more of a threat to those constitutional liberties than what the FCC is thinking about doing. And here's a scenario that I spun out for my audience last week, Todd, and I want you to react to this. Looking at the end game for the Obama administration with their hostility to Christianity, their hostility to conservatism, looking for ways to kind of repress the voice of dissent in America, that the view is that the airwaves belong to the American people, and the FCC is like a steward of the airwaves of the American people. So here's how I think the thinking is going to go. You have these stations, these networks that are promoting hate speech, they're promoting homophobia, they're promoting bigotry on airwaves that belong to the American people. We cannot allow the American people's airwaves to be used for hatred and homophobia and bigotry. We're going to have to yank their licenses, and I could easily see, Todd, by the end of this administration, some move on the part of the FCC to start questioning the licensing of any media outlets that criticize the normalization of homosexuality. Is that an exaggeration?
You know, sadly, I don't think it is an exaggeration, Brian, and I think that's why we should all be troubled and we should all be on guard about what this administration plans to do in the future, and quite frankly, what this means for the country beyond the Obama years in the White House. You know, one of the big issues in my new book coming out in May, God Bless America, we talk about some of the issues that have been impacting the country in the war on religious liberty. And I suspect that one day we're going to reach a point very soon where somebody's going to say, perhaps in Congress or wherever, and say, you know what, where's all this stuff coming from about gay marriage and traditional marriage? Where's all this hatred coming from? And I think eventually they're going to set their sights and they're going to turn their sights on the Bible. And I suspect that we are going to see within our lifetime an attempt to outlaw or criminalize parts of the Bible, or perhaps even pulling out parts of the Bible that have to deal with those issues.
Yeah, labeling the Bible or certain portions of the Bible as hate speech.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, it is the logical, look, it's the logical conclusion here. I mean, you're eventually going to have to go after the source of all of this.
You know, and I'm looking at a story here from townhall.com today, Todd, and you're familiar, I think, with this anti-Obamacare ad that had been produced, it dealing with a specific Democrat congressman who's running for re-election, and an ad was produced featuring a woman suffering from leukemia who lost her insurance because of Obamacare. And it's an ad run in this Democrat's district that's going to make it difficult for him to be reelected. And the response of the Democrats is to go to the FCC, the same organization, agency we're talking about, to try to get the licenses of any of the stations that aired that ad, get those licenses pulled. Now, this is just dealing with Obamacare. It's not dealing with homosexuality or Christianity. So if they're willing to make that effort, and obviously they feel like they've got some opportunity to succeed or make some headway given the bias of the FCC, or they wouldn't even try to get these licenses yanked from these stations for running ads that they don't think are right.
Yeah, and you know, the other part of that equation with this Democratic lawmaker, Brian, they're going after the poor woman who has cancer. I mean, they have no qualms about going after anyone who mentions that they're having issues with Obamacare. Look, just the other day, I received a Facebook message from one of our readers out in Southern California, and she tried to take her little child to the doctor's office because the child had developed some sort of a terrible rash. And of course, the doctor's office could not see the child because their Obamacare insurance had not been officially approved. And eventually, they ended up having to take the child to the emergency room, all because they do not have Obamacare insurance just yet, which they should have. So look, a lot of horror stories out there. And the troubling thing is now the Democrats are going after women who have cancer. Wow, what big men they have in the Democratic Party.
One last thing I want to talk with you about. We're talking here with Todd Starnes, reporter for Fox News. Got a new book coming out in May, God Bless America. You'll definitely want to read that. Todd, one last thing. It's, again, a breaking story from this morning, CNS News, about the Department of Defense, and you've reported on this. In fact, you've exposed some of the training done in the military that demonizes the American Family Association and Family Research Council as hate groups. And now I've got a story today from CNS News that the Department of Defense is going to continue to use the SPLC as a resource for its training materials. Now, the story goes on to say that they are going to purge hate group lists from the kind of training materials that are provided to the military, but they are still legitimizing the SPLC as a training resource, which means I think trainers go to the SPLC website, and no matter what the DOD says, they go to the SPLC website, and they will see FRC and AFA labeled as hate groups. It's hard for me to visualize that that's not going to make its way back into their training. Your reaction?
Well, I have copies of military documents that they don't want me to have a copy of, and we're going to be doing some more in-depth stories in the coming weeks and months over the military and these sensitivity training courses that all military personnel are required to go through. Look, I'm not surprised. Look, we've the military time and time again told us that these were isolated incidents, and yet the isolated incidents kept piling up. And unfortunately, we had military spokespeople who were not forthcoming, and they told us one thing when in fact the truth was another. So I think that, again, we need to be on guard here. And I think the bigger question is why And what purpose does it serve for men and women serving the armed forces to be trained that people who are evangelical Christians, people who are Catholics, are religious extremists, and groups like the American Family Association and Family Research Council are somehow considered domestic hate groups? What is the end result of that kind of training? Very disturbing, and I'm really and truly afraid to learn the answers to those questions.
Well, and you look at the news that came out today that Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel is going to propose a budget that will slash the United States military, the Army's fighting force, to a level that is lower than anything we have seen since World War II. And so, Todd, it seems to me part of almost a concerted effort on the part of this administration to weaken and diminish the United States military. And by going after pro-family groups, by going after religious liberty in the military, they're weakening the morale and the spiritual strength of our troops. And so it looks to me that it's not accidental.
Well, it's certainly not accidental. I mean, under the Obama administration, we have seen the United States military turned into a social engineering petri dish. They are more concerned about changing culture and fighting culture than they are about defending the United States. And this is not coming from the rank and file. This is coming from the Pentagon and the lawyers that the Obama administration has put into the Pentagon. We've told these stories time and time again, and the evidence is out there. For goodness sakes, Brian, this is a military that banned Bibles from Walter Reed Medical Center. They're banning chaplains from praying in the name of Jesus. We have seen chaplains who have been fired because they were praying in the name of Jesus. And this is very troubling stuff, not surprising, and it needs to stop.
Our guest has been Todd Starnes. He's the host of Fox News and Commentary, heard daily on hundreds of radio stations, including right here on the AFR Talk Network. We look forward to more reporting from Todd on these important cultural issues. Todd, one more mention. Tell us just a little bit about your book. Got about 20 seconds, your book, and when it comes out.
Brian, it's called God Bless America. We're talking about the attacks on religious liberty in this country. Folks can go to toddstarnes.com, and right now you can get an exclusive first edition copy. The links are on the website, toddstarnes.com.
Our guest, Todd Starnes, coming to us live from our remote studio at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Nashville. Todd, thanks as always for taking time to chat with us.
Thanks, Brian.
Todd Starnes from Fox News. We'll be right back with your phone calls and more. Stay with us. Focal Point, AFR Talk. Number to call, 888-589-8840.